and welcome back to the Beardworks podcast, episode 5. Nick, how you been, man?
Yeah, good. Yeah, finishing up uni for the semester, so yeah, keen to talk about some stuff.
Yeah, 5 episodes in now, feeling pretty good. I think we're getting better as I think we say this every week. We say we're getting a little bit better each time, so just keep building it up and see how we go. But yeah, today we're talking about 3 different topics. So first off, we're going to be talking about the 2019 reboot, you could say, of Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Nick, how did you feel after finishing the main campaign and playing a bit of multiplayer?
Yeah, usually I just get COD every year for the multiplayer. I've been hammering it since the first Modern Warfare, so I've played them all. Usually it's just multiplayer. There's been the odd good campaign. Treyarch's usually pretty good, but this newest campaign, the Modern Warfare 2019, was absolutely unreal. It was like a movie that you play.
Yeah, for sure. I know for a fact that obviously you really do grind out multiplayer and you go for that level cap and prestige. That's one of the things you love to do. I'm more of a single player kind of guy. I do love my multiplayer and obviously the Warzone game mode. But going back through the Call of Duties, I've played pretty much every campaign. The only one that I didn't play was World War II's. What was was that last year or the year before? Can't remember.
Yeah, I
off the
never
top of my head.
finished World War II's either.
I just wasn't really engaged in it as much as I thought I would be, so I just didn't end up finishing it, which I probably should go back and finish one day so I can actually compare them. But overall, obviously bringing back fan favorites, as in Captain Price, I think is an absolute winner in my eyes.
Yeah, the Modern Warfare campaigns were very, very good. Like back in the day, Modern Warfare 2, you see Ghost get shot. My whole life shattered as a kid.
It was pretty brutal. It was very hard to accept back in the day, especially when you see Ghost as such a cool character with the whole skull mask, or balaclava, and you see like he's a bit of a badass. You know, he's yeah, obviously to be part of the Task Force 141 back then in Modern Warfare 2. It was a very exclusive group, and to see him and also you play as Gary Roach Sanderson, and he's the one that also gets shot at the time by Shepard, the asshole that betrayed them. But it was cool overall. Like the whole arc of Modern Warfare 1, 2, 3 was a good story, and I think it really fleshed out some good characters. I sort of wished we played it Soap more in Modern Warfare 3, but I know they had to introduce a new character through Yuri, which was kind of cool. I wasn't a big fan that they killed off Soap so early, or not so early on, I should say. It was towards the end of the game, but I love Soap. Like obviously from the first mission, the training in the hangar. What you know, after you complete it, and then Captain Price like, what kind of name is Soap? You know, awesome kind of little beginning.
Yeah, I actually watched a movie recently called Dog Soldiers, and the main character in that is the voice of Soap. Just like a
Oh,
random point.
oh,
Yeah,
you're joking.
it was funny watching it. I was like, I know this bloke. I couldn't pick it, and I had to like get on IMDb. Yeah, it was his name's Sergeant Cooper in the movie. I don't know what his name is in real life, but yeah, he played Soap.
That's quite interesting because obviously movie actors have been putting their voices into video games now in the last decade or so. Whether it be Peter Dinklage voicing your Ghost in Destiny 1 until they had eventually had the contract had run out and they needed more voice acting, so they swapped him out. Also, Liam McIntyre, who plays the Spartacus in seasons 2 and 3, he voices what's the evil Jedi in Jedi Fallen Order
It's
on
like Malek or Malachi
oh
or something like that.
Malakos, that's his name.
Yeah.
So yeah, he voices him, and I remember when I was playing Jedi, and you see him speaking, and I was like, "That's Liam McIntyre." I know, I love the Spartacus shows, the TV shows. So yeah, it was picked him out straight away. But going back to Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 1, 2, 3 to 3 was there. It was story wise was awesome. Obviously, Modern Warfare 2 I think was the best multiplayer of the three. I think number 3 of Modern Warfare 3 wasn't as flash, but overall the story, you play obviously as different characters through over the trilogy. But you have Captain Price, who has been around since Call of Duty 2, I believe. I'm not sure if I never played Call of Duty 1, but I know in Call of Duty 2, maybe he's in Call of Duty 1. Oh, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know that there is a character called Captain Price throughout the Call of Duty storylines, no matter what it be. But yeah, obviously, mainly in the Infinity War ones. I don't believe he's in anything else. But yeah, awesome. Just really cool trilogy there. And then they rebooted with just Modern Warfare, which is with up to date, I could say, like real life scenarios that are happening right now in the world. So yeah, first off, the brutality, pretty cool, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it's like the first or the second mission. It's like a public like terrorism attack shooting in London. That's crazy to start a game with such a I don't know, such a brutal hit.
Yeah.
It sets the scene for the rest of the story. You know what you're in for.
Well, if you think back to Modern Warfare 2, you have the infamous terminal scene where you're going through as an
No
undercover
Russian.
spy. Yeah. So you're going through this terminal and you're just shooting civilians, innocent civilians. It's a pretty brutal mission, but I mean, we were young back then. I guess we didn't really think about it. But when you think about it now, it's pretty controversial. I mean, it's a game though. Like I don't think it's anything different other than that. So it's a game. Games can do whatever they like, to a
Yeah.
certain extent. But so I wouldn't take that out of the game if it was to start up again. But I know that for a fact. Yeah, that bombing scene in Piccadilly Square. That was really when it kicked off for me. I really was invested in the story when that happened because I was like, because you see that you play as Sergeant Garrick, and he was saying, they've got us on a leash, and we can't go out and attack them first because even though we have them, then we know that they have weapons and they're doing the wrong thing. We can't do it first because we're always waiting with retaliate after something happens. So it was really cool to see. You're going through the streets, people are getting shot left, right, and center. The bombers are going off. It's a pretty brutal scene. But to see that you get saved, well, not get saved, but Captain Price comes along at the very end of the mission, helps you. You have to make a pretty split decision, which you don't have to make yourself. Captain Price makes that, where the bomb strapped to a civilian's vest is a pretty brutal scene. But then as soon as that point on, you join Captain Price's team, and I feel that obviously Captain Price is the spearhead of this operation. That if someone needs to go somewhere and take care of something, he's the one to go do it.
Yeah, he's a bit of a savage, and like we'll jump ahead a little bit. Like the end cutscene, like the Easter egg teasing the second game, or like the one that's going to be coming out in the future, when he like is just listing off like 141. Oh, I
Yeah,
had goosebumps watching that.
that's the thing. If you've played the old games, you would know who these characters are, and I think it's such a good direction by Activision sorry, not Activision, but Infinity Ward, sorry, to bring back those characters because they were such back in the day, like gamers wise, like household names. People knew who they were. And yeah, you find out obviously that Sergeant Garrick is actually Gaz, and Gaz was in the first Modern Warfare. He was like Captain Price's number 2, and you lose a lot of characters in the first Modern Warfare. Like a lot of characters get killed off at the very end in the final mission. But yeah, overall, to list off those characters, and obviously they talk about Simon Ghost Riley, so Ghost is back, and obviously playing Warzone, he's already been introduced, which I'm not sure if I was a massive fan of because it would have been cool just to wait until the next game came out to see what he was kind of going to be designed like. But I know that they need to make money, and obviously Warzone is their moneymaker at the moment with all the skins. So, but bringing Ghost back, and obviously they talked about other characters as well. Obviously Soap McTavish, which is Soap who you played through in the first game and bits and pieces in the second and third game. Overall, the story, pretty much they could say this is a prequel to the original Modern Warfare game, but obviously it's not. With the characters wise, they're just introducing them again, I guess. So
Yeah, it was really awesome in that cutscene how he's like, "Oh, Simon Riley," and then his like folder doesn't have a photo because he's a ghost. I
yeah,
thought that was just like the sickest little detail.
and I actually like if you looked at the characters as a whole from the Modern Warfare game, Captain Price is obviously just always going to dethrone anybody they bring along because it's Captain Price. Obviously, you play Sergeant Garrick for a lot of the game as well, finding out that he's Gaz, and so that's pretty cool. I mean, I liked Gaz was a straightforward character in the first Modern Warfare, so now we see he's a bit more fleshed out. They got a backstory and stuff like that. And then you had Alex, who worked, I think he was the CIA operative.
Yeah,
And
he's the one that looks like a Hemsworth.
yeah, for sure. And he was really, his character, you play with him throughout the game. He was a really cool character as well. And you find out that he's more of a, what's the word for it? Like he gets told where to go, he goes and does his job, and that's it. Like he's got no real ties to anything or anyone. And then you find that throughout this game, he sides with the militia for a little while he's undercover. Obviously they're fighting the bad guys as well, which at this time is the Russians. And so
It's always Russians.
pretty much these days. And so yeah, Alex obviously he creates ties with a brother and sister that fight as a militia, fight the militia as the militia army, and they're the leaders. Obviously, there's a few twists and turns throughout it. but Alex obviously eventually chooses to fight with them instead of going back and going to be assigned elsewhere. So I think that was really cool.
Yeah, they definitely explored both characters heaps, but I still think I preferred Gaz's story in this. Like, I'd rather be playing with Price by my side, and like that mission. Oh, I don't know what it's called. It's like the night vision one,
Yeah,
where
you
you're
have to go
going through
through.
like clearing the house and all the terrorists and stuff.
Yep.
That's a sick mission.
Yeah, that was where you could sort of move around the map freely. You didn't have to like a linear where you had to go. You just had options to go to. But yeah, I thought Gaz's story was really good, and obviously he's with Captain Price the entire time. There was that really brutal. Well, before we talk about this part, we should talk about the. Have you seen the 13 Hours Secret Soldiers of Benghazi movie? With
Nah, but you've told
yeah,
me about it.
I've raved on it for two of my mates. That movie features I forget his name now, the actor from The Office.
Well, I know who you're talking about. He's in A Quiet Place as
John
well.
Krasinski.
John
Yeah.
Krasinski, yeah.
So he obviously created A Quiet Place for him and his wife Emily Blunt, and obviously that's getting a sequel coming up. But he was a part of this movie, so obviously you're so used to seeing like the actor play Jim as a comic relief or the comedy guy. But in this movie, he's an actual soldier, and actually has Roy as well from The Office. I forget that actor's name, but he's obviously. It's good to see those two act together in a movie where it's like action based and see how their friendships blossomed from the Office TV show. And yeah, so the movie is based about these people defending this place, like it's a embassy pretty much, and they get attacked, and it's just about them defending it. If you haven't seen the movie, go watch it. Absolutely awesome film. But the mission that you play as Garrick and Soap, and you go to help Farah and a few other people trying to get the wolf. I think that's the bad guy's name at the time. They're trying to get him out of the embassy that they're defending at the moment, where they're sitting at, and that's when the militia rocks up and the butcher, that guy with the yellow shirt.
Yep.
And so that was one of my favorite missions, because that mission in as a whole itself, the first part not so much as you're going through the building, but when you get to that part when you're shooting out into that field and you're using the flares to see where they all are.
Oh yeah, that's like the Benghazi shit you were saying.
That's exactly ripped out of the movie, which I love that movie. Like I said, I can talk about it all day. And that mission reminded me of it. And it was such a cool mission. Obviously you see the butcher, see how horrifying he is he's so brutal. Obviously you see him, you got a choice to open the door. Obviously the choice is if you do, you die, but there's like a glass shield. And fortunately this father gets killed, and then he's holding the boy a gun to his head saying, open the door and I won't shoot the boy. And then like Price is like, we haven't got time for this. I'm sorry, but we'll get him for this. You see the boy run off into the smoke, and you just hear a gunshot and you hear a body drop, which is obviously so brutal, like we've spoken about, as this whole game is. And yeah, so that mission was a massive standpoint for me to say that. I mean, I love the movie of Secret Soldier in Benghazi, and that brought back the memories of watching it. But like, I like the idea of like backs against the wall defending. I think it's just a really cool aspect of the game. So yeah, overall, Call of Duty as a game has a really brutal nature, and I think this game showed the potential that other games have shown as well, that war is brutal and it is gritty, and there's no right or wrong. It's just all bad, pretty much. So overall, decent game, decent story. Multiplayer is pretty decent. I know you play a lot of that, and obviously the Warzone we've touched on in our first episode of the podcast. Really, really enjoyed this game. I'm glad the single player is back, because it tells a great story of heroism, but obviously how bad and dark violence can be when it's not glorified in I guess other aspects of video games. And speaking of glorified murderous rampage, movie that came out at the start of this year in April 24th, actually my birthday, was Extraction with Chris Hemsworth on Netflix.
Yeah, that movie is unreal.
Absolutely brutal. Talking about brutality in that game, and now we're talking about this movie. It's the Australian version of John Wick, pretty much.
Yeah, way tougher.
For sure. And Chris Hemsworth, I think, has shown, as his time playing through the Avengers as Thor, he's also played different roles that haven't kicked off so well. I think he's got the sort of like the license now that he can do whatever he feels like. And so he just made this movie that's pretty much an escort mission through, anyone that's played on video games, but it's a very, very graphical and brutal movie.
Not shit like an escort mission is.
True. So what did you What did you enjoy most about the movie?
The first scene where he gets captured by the terrorist dudes and they put a gun to his head and they like pretend to shoot it and he doesn't even blink. That was the best scene. It just like, yep, it's about to kick off. He's not scared of dying.
That first action scene was a really good way to show you how tough our character is that we're going to be following. Obviously, we see him the first few scenes. You've seen, I'm not sure I can't remember off the top of my head what the first scene was, but obviously when we first
It's
introduced
like
to,
him in the outback when he
yeah,
jumps off
yeah,
the cliff with
yeah.
his
So his
mate.
name's Tyler Rake. That's his character's name. And yeah, he's from Australia, and he obviously worked in some kind of special forces unit. But yeah, he gets hired out now to do dirty jobs. And yeah, this one is the synopsis of the story is that a drug cartel or drug lord son has been kidnapped by the opposing ones across the state. I think it's between India and Pakistan. And
Yep.
so what happens is this drug lord is in jail, so his offsider is chasing up someone to do the dirty work for him and get him back. Brings in our main character, and yeah, you find out that there's a few twists and turns, but overall, just I don't know, like a real gritty John Wick, I would say.
Yeah, he's definitely a psycho in the movie. Like he's getting blown up, shot, stabbed, beaten up, getting attacked by child soldiers, and he's just swearing his way, shooting his way through it. It's almost funny to watch because I know we're Australian and just seeing like an Aussie accent as the hero. I know it was pretty funny, but I really enjoyed it.
Well, if you think back, like the movie progressed in a pretty standard way. It's pretty much saying when's the next action scene going to happen, and that's all you're there for. You're not really there for the great acting, but like I'm saying, listening to Chris Hemsworth speak as an Australian and just like say a bit of our slang, why he's like murdering people or slapping some child soldiers around was a great spectacle to watch. And yeah, I mean, obviously we don't know. We know how it ends. We won't spoil it too much, but there is a scene that you think he's been killed off, but obviously I don't think he has been because the movie did so well. I think during the time that the movie was released, it was during the height of the pandemic, and so people were at home and just binge watching this movie. There were so many people. I think it had shitloads. Excuse my language of watch time on Netflix.
Yeah, well, I watched it twice in the first week. Me and my dad, we just thought it was the sickest, so we watched it a couple times.
But overall, really cool action, and like I said, and the hand to hand combat was so good.
Yeah, yeah, you can definitely tell. Well, Chris Hemsworth, we all know him as Thor. He's got a pretty good action background. All those movies are Psycho as well, but this is like so much more grounded in reality. Every hit or punch he throws, you feel it. It seems like a real hit.
And it a bit like John Wick. I mean, it's so the reason I compare it to John Wick so much is because it's a high body count, and that's all that John Wick is as well. And showing this every hit he gets like every hit that he takes, you can see that physically, and that stops him from doing certain things. And you just see him at the end, he's just marching on, like he's got no other choice.
Oh yeah, and that bridge scene at the end, he's literally he's like Swiss cheese, man. He's got that many holes and scratches in him, and he's still just capping everyone that comes at him.
To be fair, the guy that he sort of not so much it's like he's what can you say? Like his adversary for the big start, probably the first hour of the film, is the same guy that hired him. Is also like a special ops from India that was part of the mafia group or part of the drug lord or whatever he was. And so he obviously set the whole twist of the movie is that there's a setup. They weren't really going to pay them. He was just going to extract him to a certain point, and then that guy who was the offsider to the drug lord was just going to finish everyone off and not pay up and just take the kid.
Yep.
So he actually gets a fair bit of screen time, and you see them two face off in a few fights. It shows like they're not exactly equal. Chris Hemsworth character Tyler is pretty strong. He drops him a few times, but at the very end, they make a decision where Tyler hands off the child to that guy anyway and says, "You get him out of the country. I'm going to create a distraction to sort of like clear the bridge a bit." Obviously, doesn't go to plan, and so that character actually goes like, you see him become like a commando as well.
Yeah, it's like a classic tale. Like the two enemies have to team up at the end to take out the bigger enemy, but it works so well in this movie just because it's just so legit. The action is just crazy. The story's pretty good. It's just overall, it's just a solid action movie. Haven't had a good just random action movie in a long time that I feel is at this level.
Well, no, definitely not. And I think that if you look at the John Wick trilogy that's happened so far, it's gotten ridiculous and just as. I don't want to say the story's just as good through the three movies. I think the first one's really good,
Yep.
I think they build the world in the second one, and then the third one they sort of build the world more, but they go back on so many of these rules that they actually set that they said they never break. So the John Wick universe, I think, has sort of dipped a little bit from when you first hear about it in the first film, which is a bit of a shame. Obviously, they're looking at doing a TV show, so that could build onto it and maybe sort of like clear some of the air. But overall, Extraction I think, is a good comparison to John Wick. I think it's fair to say that it's just as good. Maybe, like I said, the world building is not as much, but as an action wise, I think it's just as good.
I don't know if it's as good as the first Extraction is as good as the first John Wick, but Extraction is better than the second and third John Wick. John Wick is like the first one was believable. Like
Yep.
he's like the sickest assassin. He's done a lot of killing for the mafia, like Russians and stuff. They set his character up to be awesome and the universe to be awesome. But then the second and third, it gets almost fantasy, almost too bullshit. And what's in the newest one, that Assassin's Creed scene? I'm not the only one that thought that was an Assassin's Creed reference.
It was very interesting. I don't know. I honestly don't know where to go from John Wick. I mean, if you watch it blatantly as a action film, it's good, but it's hard to look past that now because they're building a world for it, and I think they've made a few mistakes in building that world. But it is what it is.
Definitely.
But it's good to see the Australian action hero, formerly known as Thor, still Thor, in his own action movie.
Yeah, Extraction definitely needs a sequel. And that end scene where you see it's hinted that it's him in the background, which it probably is, because that obviously it makes so much money. They're not going to not make a sequel.
Yeah, I believe that
So
too.
I'm so hyped for it. Bring on Modern Warfare, bring on Extraction 2, bring it all on.
Exactly. And I was saying just before Nick, we finished off there, is that Australian Thor, and I think we have to discuss about the new Avengers game coming out in, I believe it was November or September, September 4th, 2020. Marvel Avengers. They released a new gameplay trailer in regards to the enemies that you'll be fighting, the sort of gameplay, the story, the customization. They just dropped a whole lot of stuff on top of us. And your first thoughts are, Nick? How do you feel after watching all that?
I was impressed by that war table. Like I've seen a few trailers before. I'm like, oh, cool, Avengers game. It's just going to be another beat 'em up. But I'm getting Destiny vibes from that war table. Like all the customization, the unlockables, the war. What do they call it? Like War Strike or Warzone or something.
There's
The
it's
co-op
Warzone
game
and
mode.
co-op. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That seems like Destiny to me. Like you can gear up your character and go on with your mates to do missions. Sounds like a strike from Destiny. And I'm hyped for a Marvel strike. That would be the sickest game.
So far, what they've shown is really promising. And obviously, they're building off the hype of the Marvel movies that have come out in the last decade or so. And it's a perfect time to do it. Obviously, we've had bits and pieces of like movie tie-ins that aren't that great. This is a AAA game made by Square Enix, who obviously know how to make video games. Sorry, I should say the developers are Crystal Dynamics, and Square Enix is
Yeah.
obviously the publisher. But I mean, it's all the same stuff. They all have their little things they have to do to make the game work, and if they're funding it and what they want in the game. And so overall, from watching that gameplay trailer, there was one I hadn't seen many missions because they're just showing bits and pieces. And obviously, they said we want to show you a heroic specific mission, which is where you play as Thor. And I believe they don't. Obviously, we haven't seen much of the story, but we have a rough idea of how it works out. But obviously, it looks like in this story mission is the first time you have Thor come back after the A-Day incident that happened. I'm not sure how long ago in that trailer what it said, but obviously you play as Thor coming back to help out.
Yeah, I thought that was sick. He looks like the costume from Thor 1, where he's like stripped of his power and he's just wearing like a shirt and boots. But
Yep.
yeah, and that was in that war table video, they say it's a reference to an old comic. I haven't read it, but yeah, when he's like calls his hammer off that memorial, like
Yeah.
that just comes into the crowd, he grabs it, flies off. That's sick. I love those moments where it's just like heroics out of nowhere.
After watching that gameplay, like it was really cool. Like there's different combos you can create, and there's team combos and finishes, and so they've really thought really. It's not like just a hack and slash. Obviously, it shows vibes of that, but there's obviously combos that you can build. It's not just oh, you got 3 buttons to press, and that's what you press. There's obviously different formations that you can run with your heroes as well. And so overall, like watching that gameplay, you see that you're the Hulk, Iron Man, Black Widow, and obviously I think Camilla Khan's in there as well.
Yeah.
So far, and that's just showing that story alone was really cool. And obviously, his ultimate move is like transporting through the Bifrost. Like
Yeah, you can call in the Bifrost. That looked pretty sick.
that was nuts. Like it showed that there was a barricade you couldn't get through, like a barrier, I should say, and he just like used his hammer and he came flying through. And it shows like a little symbol of the Bifrost, and you can place it wherever you like. And he just came flying through and did like max damage, which was really cool.
Yeah, they're talking about there's like different abilities. There's like passive abilities, support, like tank abilities. So if you're doing those strikes with a team, you'd obviously have to coordinate. Like you'd have a support character, you'd have the damage dealer, or in terminology we know, you'd have the Titan, you'd have the Hunter, you'd have the Warlock.
Yeah, in regards to
Like,
Destiny.
like it's going to be really cool getting online with our friends and like just having a build, like having our own specific team of Avengers, because our single player characters to our multiplayer characters are going to be completely different.
Yeah.
It's going to be like having double the game.
And watching the customization part of it, like you touched on earlier, there's so much you can do, and like they do reference a lot of comics. It's not like they've just thought, okay, let's do like movie characters from the obviously Avengers movie recently and just do their skins. We're doing something like well, Batman Arkham, the Arkham series did it to a certain extent. They had like Batman Beyond, Batman Classic, they had all these different skins that you could play as Batman with. But these ones obviously will enhance the combat experience. And they do pay a lot of homage to, I think that's the word for it. To comics that had came out over the last 50, 60 years, which is really awesome because it's not just these heroes haven't been around for the last decade or two. They've been around for like plenty more decades, and so to see them actually pay that back to those characters is really cool. And I actually love the idea that you can use different kind of damage. There's like the basic impulse repulsor damage, obviously for Iron Man, but you can actually have gamma damage inside your suit as well.
Yeah, so you reckon Gamma's like poison? That's
It'd be
what I would
something.
say.
I'd
Yeah.
say something similar because like it's green, and green's always affiliated with poison, other than purple. And it's obviously Bruce Banner was infected with gamma to become the Hulk, so I feel like it will just do damage at a time. He was just a very lucky experiment that happened to go right. So
It was cool to when they were cycling through the costumes, they teased us with Joe Fixit, the Grey Hulk in the suit.
yeah, yep, that was
That
cool.
that was pretty interesting. There's going to be so many like funny costumes because there's like a million comics. There's going to be some wicked throwbacks, I reckon.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I remember watching. It must have been through some of the gameplay they were talking about. It showed. It looks like there's sort of like a resistance at the moment, like after the A-Day incident. So, I mean, I say this to this day: Captain America is definitely not dead. They're portraying it as he is dead, but he's definitely he can't be dead. Like unless he's a DLC character or something like that. It doesn't make no sense. I'm looking at the cover right now, and he's in the middle of it. Obviously, that's what it is.
Well, the
But
villain is MODOK, and MODOK is a bit of a psycho.
he's an
So
Inhuman, isn't he?
he's something. I don't know if he's an Inhuman, but he's an Inhuman villain.
Yeah, I believe that they were talking about because the way the story is being portrayed at the moment is that the helicarrier goes down, explodes, and it creates. Well, it's obviously San Francisco because that's the bridge in the background. That it creates like San Francisco like unlivable, and the people that were there at the time get infected with the Inhuman. Like it's not a virus, but like they get the abilities and they become Inhumans, and that's why the aim is it Ames, yeah. The Ames technology company taken over, and obviously the major villains working with them, and you sort of find out that they're not really helping the people that were sick from the helicarrier crashing, but yet they're like sort of holding them against their will. So that's where Kamala Khan comes into it because she's an Inhuman. She's obviously takes it upon herself to rally up the Avengers and try to tell them obviously what she knows. Her experiences are through the Ames company. So
Yeah, well, in comic universe, MODOK, he hates Captain America because Captain America's obviously the perfect man. He's got like the sickest body. He's smart. He's strong, and MODOK's got that little gimp body and like the massive head. He's like he's a bit deformed,
yeah,
and he's like a recurring Captain America villain because he just hates Captain America. He like resents his physicality. So I reckon that's why MODOK's going to be targeting Captain America at the start of the game. It's going to be
yeah.
that like deep seated hate origin from the comic, which
I mean,
yeah, it's going to be really cool.
so far we haven't seen him in any of the live action movies, and we haven't even seen Kamala Khan either. So this would be a really good story because I think they could have done something easy and gone for like a generic villain that we've seen already on the TV show or the movies, and have our generic heroes, which we do, because obviously when you have Captain America, Thor, Hulk, Iron Man, Black Widow, obviously Hawkeye is not on the cover at the moment. Whether he might be in the story later or not, I'm not sure. But obviously, these guys are the ones that sold the movies, and their stories are the ones that people fell in love with. So of course, you capitalize on that and bring those characters to the forward of the group, and then you bring in someone fresh that you can play with, which is Camilla Khan, obviously, to build that that relationship with the rest of that cast that you may not have had straight away, or you might have obviously due to the movies. So it'd be really interesting to see where they go, where they take this from this first part. But obviously, with all the other stuff they have in it, with the co-op and the war zone, it's going to be a really interesting game, and I think it's going to be like replayable for a long time.
Yeah, well, you said we haven't seen gameplay and stuff from Hawkeye yet, and they have said in the trailer that there's going to be free characters like periodically introduced into the game. Hawkeye's probably going to be the first one. He's an obvious choice just to fill out the movie roster because that's the characters people know the most.
Yeah, for
What's
sure.
your wish list though? Who do you want in the game?
Well, after reading the Cosmic Ghost Rider, that'd be pretty sick, I reckon. Have either
Yeah.
Johnny Blaze, or I don't think obviously they wouldn't bring in Frank Castle's Ghost Rider because he's already a character as the Punisher. So,
Yeah.
and obviously cosmic level kind of power, it'd just be OP in this kind of game. So it'd be really cool to see Ghost Rider though. I reckon he could be more of a brutal character, with his chain that can like just disintegrate characters or
Yeah,
enemies.
because they've all got individual traversal. Like Iron Man flies, Thor flies, Hulk's got like the jumps and stuff. Black Widow's got the agility. Imagine cruising around on a hell motorcycle, flames going everywhere. That would be the funnest way to get around. Like kicking
Yeah,
off on that bike. That would be so good.
that was probably like when I think back now, and after we read this comics recently, it'd be really cool. And I think obviously they're going to bring in Ant Man at some stage because he's
Yep.
Paul Rudd's character is actually pretty popular. And good. I'd imagine he'd be good to play with. Obviously, they might bring in. I mean, obviously, my first pick, I would love to see Ghost Rider because I think Ghost Rider is really cool. But I mean, surely they'd bring in War Machine at some stage.
Yeah.
Because he's just a skin of Iron Man, technically, people call him. What was your number one character you'd like to see in this game?
Blade. They're bringing
What a
out the
surprise.
Morbius movie. They're bringing out the Morbius movie. In the comics, Spider-Man and Blade have teamed up and fought Morbius, fought Dracula. That would be a really cool like marketing campaign is to like introduce Blade in the game, hint at him, and obviously we're getting the new Mahershala Ali Blade movie. This would be a wicked way to start to get people thinking about the character again. Put him in the
Yeah.
game, kill some vampires, vampire DLC. That would be so fun. I'm a vampire fan. I'm a Blade fan. He's always going to be my pick.
It just depends whether I mean I love the idea of having Blade in the movie in the game, sorry, because the Blade movies are pretty good. But I'm not sure if he'll be such a renowned hero, I guess, from these latest movies that have come out. So he might not be at the top of the priority list. What would be really cool is obviously, like you're saying, to get the wheels in motion for the movie, to get everyone hyped up for it, would be to have like a side mission where you go help Blade, and there might be like some things you need to track down and kill, which might be vampires, which would be kind of cool.
Yep.
I'd love to see Blade in there. Whether how big the roster would be come the end of the game, I'm not sure, or after all the DLC. But I think they'll try and capitalize on the movies, so they'll start looking at bits and hopefully there's some DLC like maybe Guardians of the Galaxy stuff that'd be kind of cool. Like you just do like a few space missions as Tony Stark.
Yeah, I think that's the way it's going to go. They're going to try to bring people in that are movie fans. So we're going to get Doctor Strange. Like you might have some like mystical missions. You're going to have some Guardian stuff. Maybe Fantastic Four. They're usually pretty shit. The movies aren't that good, but the comics are very good. Like maybe go to where's Doctor Doom from again? I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, Doctor Doom. Like get all that stuff because Doctor Doom tries to take over the world 100 times. He'd be a
He's
wicked
actually
villain.
he's actually quite strong, like Doctor Doom. Victor Doom, he is. Sorry,
Yeah.
is his actual name. He's actually quite strong, and like so, there has been plenty of times that he's taken down the Avengers or beaten the Avengers, and been their like priority enemy.
Oh yeah, he's a heavy hitter in the comics. He's done a lot of crazy shit. I just googled it. Latveria is where he's from. People wondering.
yeah.
Like, imagine if you just like imagine Easter eggs. Like you're in the Helicarrier and there's like Latveria on a map.
Yeah.
Like there's so many little places they could hint at.
Well, speak of that kind of place, you think of Wakanda as well, obviously with Black Panther.
Yeah,
So
he's
I
real
mean,
popular.
So there's so many different ways they can go. This game could be like, I don't want to see them put massive price tags on DLC. I'd like to see like the first few be free, and then maybe they drop some big DLC and have like 4 or 5 missions plus a new character plus like a raid or something like that with those like a Wakanda, kind of like DLC, or like you were saying, or Guardians DLC. And it'd be really cool if they just went all out and said like a massive DLC. I'm not sure what the lifespan of this game is, whether it's going to be something that you can replay over a long time, get the DLC and keep playing it, or if it's going to be like just finish the game, get a few like extra characters DLC with a few missions, and that's about it. But even like an end game Thanos would be really cool, or Galactus. But that's might be a bit too much for this. They might make a sequel to this game. You never know.
Yeah, I hope this game turns into like we touched on Destiny again. I hope it turns into a bit of a games with as a service. Imagine if you finish the campaign, post credit scene, you see like Thanos or a ship coming in, or like something, like a plane going across Latveria. And then they start rolling out DLCs like Destiny does, like the $15 seasons every 90 days. You get the next lot of missions. You get the next characters. Like, if they turn this into like waiting for an issue of a comic series, every few weeks you get the next issue. It'd be cool if they did the story the similar way.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think it could go that way.
Yeah, I reckon that's the way to do it. I would definitely subscribe to it, and I would play all of it, because any superhero stuff we love. Like, we talk about comics all the time.
Yeah. But I mean, on another note, we don't know how far this Marvel universe is going to go, like in regards to the movies and TV shows. It seems like it's not really slowing down. So there's got potential to build on that too. And Marvel are powerhouse at the moment, and obviously owned by Disney. So they're running the show. It's not long before Disney buys out everyone, I think. But overall, super keen for this game. I think overall it's shown enough to get everyone interested. So
I'm definitely more interested after this War Table. The first few trailers, I just thought it looked pretty generic to me. Oh, another superhero story. Someone's dead. Someone's not going to be dead, like the comics. But this new War Table, the customization, the character builds, like, you're going to be able to redo the story a couple times and play as different heroes and different ways. Like, it's going to have such good replay value.
Well, I think that about does it for today's, episode 5, I shouldn't say today, because you could be listening to it tonight or in the afternoon. But either way
to work.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so that wraps up today's episode. Obviously touched about a few different things and stuff that we enjoyed, obviously. Just a little bit of heads up for the next few episodes. We are going to be talking about something really cool next week that we're both experiencing at the moment through the hardship and stressfulness of putting something together. Nothing big, but something a new experience for both of us. Also, we're both playing The Last of Us Part 2 at the moment after I've finished the remaster, so that's something to look forward to. In the next few weeks, we'll be talking about our final thoughts on the whole story over Part 1 and Part 2, and our final review on Part 2. So something to tune in for the next couple of weeks.
Catch you later.
Have a good one, guys.